This was the engagement night Reed ruined. He slept together with Isabella, forcing Jacob to use infertility as an excuse to protect her. When Jacob went to confront him wearing Abigail's wedding dress, Reed broke Jacob's wrist, but 72 hours later, Jacob married Abigail and the Reeds ultimately died violently in a bloody mutual slaughter. On the night of the engagement, I caught them in bed with Jacob. Luna's Sophia trembled, crying, "Sister-in-law, Jacob truly loved Benjamin." She knelt on the ground, banging her head. Jacob knows it would be a scandal for both families if it got out. "Please don't blame Benjamin. Jacob is despicable. Jacob is willing to end my life to atone." Luna felt sympathy for her as she embraced Sophia, taking all the blame. Jacob drank too much and mistook her for someone else. "It's not Casey's fault." "So," Jacob sneered, "so let's postpone our family's alliance for now. We'll say your health report has issues, and you can't have children. Casey, she gave herself to me for the first time. Jacob can't marry you like a scumbag. Jacob needs to take responsibility first." Reed helped her get dressed, and the two leaned against each other as they left. Then Jacob turned around, took out a hammer, and smashed the room. As soon as Jacob sat down to catch her breath, Jacob received a phone call. "Did you see? Reed doesn't deserve you." Jacob didn't speak. There was a silence on the other end. Then a muffled voice said, "Jacob, let Jacob be the other woman." "Jacob is willing." Hearing the familiar address, Jacob was momentarily dazed. Then Jacob tightened her grip on the phone. "Okay, Ella, if you dare to crash the wedding, Jacob will dare to marry." The other end was stunned for a moment, then happily agreed. After hanging up the phone call, Jacob sat on the floor, drained. Jacob's right hand, which had just been used to smash the wall, was now numb and trembling. The floor was a mess. Jacob suddenly remembered how intimate and sweet they used to be. Luna, as the heir to a powerful family fortune, always Benjamin in front of Jacob, and always indulged my every whim. During their relationship, priceless jewelry, haute couture, sprawling estates as long as Jacob liked it. Even if Jacob just glanced at it or mentioned it, Reed would go to great lengths to give it to Jacob. For the proposal, he even air freighted roses from Nova to create a magnificent sea of flowers for Jacob, set off fireworks across the city for Jacob, and had 1,000 drones displaying a high-profile proposal in the sky. They say arranged marriages among the elite often lack love, but Jacob once thought Jacob and Luna were truly in love. But today, being caught them in bed, it dealt Jacob a harsh blow. When Ella told Jacob, Jacob naively thought Abigail's Reed was joking. Who knew Luna not only slept with Isabella on their engagement night but also stabbed me in the heart as saying he needed to take responsibility first. Even James wanted Jacob to delay the wedding using infertility as an excuse. Jacob still remembered how Reed flared up in anger when Jacob said no. Luna immediately frowned and said angrily to Jacob with a cold face, "Once you marry and you'll be Phoenix's sister-in-law. If she makes a mistake, what's wrong with you covering for her? Phoenix isn't Ethan. If this gets out, how will she live her life?" But powerful families value heirs the most. Once rumors spread, it would only affect Jacob's reputation. Jacob's disgusting heart was fiercely gripped by a large hand, hurting so much Jacob could barely breathe. Reed cared about her so much, yet completely disregarded Jacob's feelings. Jacob was the one engaged to Reed today. Jacob never expected that 25 years of acquaintance, 10 years of love, our childhood sweetheart bond, couldn't compare to Mia. Emma just knelt on the ground, her forehead slightly red from banging it, and it was enough to draw Reed's pity. Jacob was shaking with anger all over, tears streaming down uncontrollably. Jacob grabbed Emma's arm to teach her a lesson. Before my hand could even touch her, I felt a stinging slap across my own face. Luna gripped Jacob's wrist and said, "Please, calm down. Don't act like a crazy woman. Everyone makes mistakes, and Phoenix only made a small one. Why are you making such a big deal out of it? Who can say for sure about matters of the heart? You're going to be Phoenix's person anyway. Why blame her? Besides, Jacob was the one who got her drunk and took her to bed. Jacob should be the one apologizing to her." Reed's words were self-righteous and shattered my heart. Jacob was hit and turned her head away, taking a long time to react. After so many years, Reed had hit Jacob for the first time, and it was for another woman. Emma cried pitifully, sobbing apologies. Luna's angry expression instantly turned into felt sympathy for her. He turned and pulled her into his arms, ignoring Jacob, who was crying hysterically and gasping for breath. Reed gently wiped Emma's tears. "Sorry. Don't mind your sister-in-law going crazy. They'll buy you some medicine to apply later." They clearly loved each other so much, but now it was a complete mess. Recalling them leaving intimately, and Emma secretly made a contemptuous gesture at Jacob. Jacob felt a lump of fire in Jacob's chest. Reed wronged her. But did that make it okay for Jacob? Reed's own mistake. Why did it become Jacob's fault? Jacob couldn't help but smash the bridal suite they had personally decorated together, crying and venting. After sitting on the ground, processing the pain and despair, Jacob wiped away Jacob's tears and made a phone call. "Luna, Jacob isn't marrying you. We're breaking off the engagement." The person on the other end of the phone call paused slightly, then scoffed. "Not marrying Jacob? Noah, stop throwing a tantrum, okay? If you don't marry Jacob, who else will you marry, Mr. John? Besides, we just got engaged. Wouldn't you make us a laughingstock by doing this? A chill spread through me, chilling me to the bone. My eyes welled up with tears. Jacob's voice choked. A laughingstock. Nothing is more ironic and laughable than you foster siblings sleeping together. My barbed words stung him. Luna, as he expected, Reed immediately roared in anger. Jacob already said it was just being drunk. Because of this small matter, you want to break off the engagement. Richard, Jacob is telling you, if you dare spread rumors and ruin Phoenix's reputation, don't blame Jacob for not being polite. The blatant threat caused Jacob a sharp, tearing pain in my heart, making Jacob unable to breathe. On the other end, Emma suddenly let out a soft gasp. Brother, rub it gently, it hurts. Luna's voice was soft. Okay, Jacob will be gentle. Intimate, ambiguous words twisted Jacob's heart in agony. As if sensing Jacob's silence, Luna's voice softened. All right, booked a plane tickets to Olivia in a few days. Jacob will accompany you to see the Aurora. Consider it my apology. Before Jacob could refuse, Reed hung up the phone call directly. Jacob laughed bitterly, got a taxi, and went to the villa where they lived together. Dean's wedding dress and new wedding gifts were still there. Jacob couldn't let that pair of scoundrels benefit from them. As soon as Jacob arrived at the villa's entrance, the sight that met Jacob when Jacob pushed the door open felt like plunging into an ice pit. Emma was wearing Jacob's ruby handmade wedding dress, and Luna had one arm around her waist, whispering intimately. Suddenly, she looked up and innocently and naively spoke. Benjamin, if Jacob wears sister-in-law's wedding dress, will she get angry? Jacob envied sister-in-law having biological parents to pamper her. If it weren't for the good fortune of meeting Benjamin and adoptive parents, Jacob probably wouldn't be able to wear such a beautiful wedding dress in this lifetime. Luna's heart softened. He pinched her cheek and smiled. Don't worry, we're family after all. She won't really get angry. We've been together for so many years. And she's about to marry Jacob. She won't actively cause trouble. Jacob painfully closed Jacob's eyes, and tears streamed down again. So Reed was so reckless because he was taking advantage of Jacob's love for him. How important the wedding dress was to Jacob, Reed couldn't have not known. How dare he openly lend it to her to wear? Jacob had eagerly looked forward to marrying Reed. But even Jacob's wedding dress became secondhand. The burning rage in Jacob's chest made Jacob burst in, pointing at her with a cold voice. Take it off. Jacob gritted Jacob's teeth. Who allowed you to wear Jacob's wedding dress? Emma's shoulders trembled slightly. Without thinking, she burrowed into Luna's arms, her voice trembling. Brother, sister-in-law is so scary. Luna's face instantly darkened. Jacob allowed it. Reed glared fiercely at Jacob. Tonight was Jacob's fault. The Phoenix wanted to wear a wedding dress in front of Jacob once, so Jacob allowed it. What wedding dress can't you have? Why are you so fierce? Jacob roared. That's Jacob Ruby's wedding dress. Tears flowed uncontrollably. Luna once promised Jacob that he would let Jacob wear a unique wedding dress and give Jacob a grand wedding. Seeing Jacob crying with red eyes, Reed felt a momentary panic. He let go of Emma, wanting to come over and hug Jacob. A hint of anger flashed in Emma's eyes. She suddenly choked up and slapped herself hard across the face. Yes, Jacob was wrong. Jacob shouldn't have foolish fantasy. Sister-in-law is Miss Michelle. Jacob is a low-class adopted daughter. How can Jacob be worthy of wearing her wedding dress? Jacob will take it off. She wiggled as she pulled the zipper. With a pull, the zipper suddenly broke. The wedding dress was carelessly pulled by her, instantly tearing in several places. Jacob was so angry that Jacob's eyes red with anger. Jacob rushed over, pulled her hair, and slapped her. You like stealing other people's cat. You like stealing other people's things. You truly are low class. Take it off. Don't dirty my mother's design. Jacob forcibly stripped off the wedding dress. The next second, Luna grabbed Jacob by the back of the neck, pulled Jacob up, and pushed Jacob out fiercely. The coffee table slammed into Jacob's lower back. Pain made Jacob's vision go black. Jacob couldn't stand and sat on the ground. Luna sneered repeatedly. It's just a ruined wedding dress. Why are you throwing a fit? Jacob isn't not marrying you. How could you strip Phoenix's clothes off? To punish Jacob, Luna coolly gripped Jacob's wrist and bent it sharply downwards. My wrist bone made a cracking sound. Reed took a food knife, slashed Jacob's wedding dress, then threw it on Jacob's face. Emma cowering picked up some clothes nearby and put them on. Eyes brimming with tears, seeing Luna approach, she conveniently fainted into his arms, ignoring Jacob's pale face. He picked up Emma. As he rushed out, he didn't forget to turn back and warn Kai, if you make any more trouble, we'll just break off the engagement directly. The pain in Jacob's lower back and wrist made Jacob feel dizzy. Jacob picked up the tattered wedding dress, gripped it tightly, and couldn't help but laugh bitterly. The first time Jacob wore it, Luna's eyes lit up when he looked at Jacob. He held Jacob's hand, said Jacob looked beautiful, and vowed to treat Jacob well. Those days Reed almost looked forward to the wedding every single day. From writing invitations to booking the hotel and reception, he handled everything himself. But at the last minute, why did Reed have to torture me with this absurdity? Jacob's heart trembled as Jacob packed the dowry items and the wedding dress, called a car to send them to Jacob's private apartment, then went to the hospital to see Jacob's wrist. After getting bandaged, Jacob collapsed exhaustedly onto the sofa. Jacob's social media app received a social media update. Today I finally gave my complete self to you. Happiness doubled. Her 18th birthday is finally complete, and Jacob will always love you. 18 years old. Jacob's heart sank. As for Emma, she was adopted halfway through, and Jacob wasn't close to her. Jacob only knew that she was suddenly sent abroad at 18 and had only recently returned. Ethan never mentioned her to Jacob normally. So, was it premeditated? What about Luna? Jacob didn't dare to think deeply. Jacob clicked into her social media profile. Her past 3 months' posts were frequently updated, filled with candlelit dinners and luxury goods. Jacob zoomed in on the detailed picture and found a familiar wristwatch. It was clearly the one Jacob had given to Luna since Emma returned to the country. Reed had always been working overtime at the company. Jacob had complained about it. But what Jacob got was that Reed was working hard to give Jacob an unforgettable honeymoon. At that time, the sweetness Jacob once felt now turned into a sharp blade piercing Jacob. Jacob was stunned, repeatedly checking for signs they'd been together, until the door opened and Jacob mechanically looked up. Luna carried a cake box in his hand and walked straight towards Jacob. Composed, Jacob had forgotten that this apartment had Reed's fingerprints recorded. Before Jacob could sternly tell Reed to leave, Reed half knelt in front of Jacob and, like presenting a treasure, handed the cake to Jacob. Jacob looked down. This was Jacob's favorite store. Every time Reed made Jacob angry, he would buy it to coax Jacob. Still mad? Don't worry. Jacob will reorder a wedding dress for you. Okay. Jacob only has you in his eyes and heart. She is just Isabella after all. Anyway, after we get married, we'll live in a new house, and you won't see her. Jacob shook Jacob's head with a self-deprecating laugh and asked, did you truly not feel anything for her? Luna's face instantly changed, and he instinctively touched his nose. Jacob knew this little gesture of Reed's too well. Then Jacob's eyes dimmed. Luna took Jacob's hand and then noticed the bandage on Jacob's wrist. He patiently and guiltily explained Jacob was too happy and drank too much at the engagement party and made a mistake. Jacob got angry with you just now because you stripped her clothes. After all, Jacob was still there, and what you did was too much. Jacob was furious. Why pretend to be pure after seeing everything? Is it not too much for her to deliberately tear up Jacob's wedding dress when wearing it? No. Reed angrily called Jacob. Any man can make a mistake. Why are you dwelling on it? Seeing Jacob's face darken, Reed angrily turned and left. Jacob bit Jacob's tongue hard to stay clear-headed and disgustedly threw the cake into the trash can. Jacob's Kai should have firmly defended Jacob, but now he was single-mindedly protecting Isabella, his foster sister. Several days passed without contact, and they were in silent treatment. Instead, Eden privately sent Jacob provocative photos. Jacob pretended not to see them. During this time, Jacob successfully obtained a visa. Before going to bed, Abigail suddenly made a phone call that instantly woke Jacob up. Honey, why is the trending topic now all about your health report having issues? Infertility. Is there a problem with the report? Or Jacob's heart clenched, and Jacob hastily checked the trending topics. The big headlines were all about Jacob's infertility, implying a break in the Song family's alliance. But soon, with a refresh, all these rumors disappeared. Jacob forced a smile and said, Ruby, Jacob doesn't want to get married anymore. Then we don't have to marry into the Song family's alliance. Jacob choked out the whole story, and Ruby's voice trembled with anger. She kept giving uneasy instructions, and only when she heard Jacob was coming back did she give up the idea of returning to the country. Jacob's nose tingled with sadness. Fortunately, Dean was always there for Jacob. Jacob never expected Luna to be so resolute for Emma. Since Reed was so heartless, then that disgusting man, Jacob might as well not have him. Jacob thought Jacob wouldn't get entangled with them before leaving, but Jacob happened to be invited to a dinner party by a friend in the industry and ran into a group of people spreading rumors. After dating for so long, she still can't have children. Jacob wouldn't dare marry her and bring her home. Jacob's old man would be furious. Yangshen, if Jacob were you, Jacob would just have some fun. What if you can't have heirs for your property? If you have an illegitimate child? Miss Michelle wouldn't agree. Would she? Several people gathered, loudly discussing Jacob. Emma occasionally added a few disparaging remarks about Jacob. Reed didn't move, just listened quietly. Jacob felt short of breath. Jacob walked over, unable to defend herself. Luna, don't you really know if Jacob's health report has issues? Reed looked guilty under Jacob's gaze and silently averted his eyes. After a long pause, he said in a deep voice, even if you have infertility, Jacob is willing to marry you. Emma cast a provocative glance at Jacob, holding a glass of red wine, pretending to comfort Jacob. That's okay. Hi. Medical technology is so advanced now. If you get a few more injections and pray at the temple, maybe you'll get pregnant. Several laughs ran out, making Jacob feel utterly humiliated. Humiliating Jacob to gain Reed a good reputation. What a shrewd plan. before Jacob could get angry. Emma used her position to spill red wine on Jacob's chest. She then pulled at the pearl chain on Jacob's dress. Mouthing, "You lost." The pearls instantly broke off with a sound, and Jacob screamed, but she fell to the ground. "Kai, why did you push Jacob?" Jacob clutched Jacob's chest, tightly pulling Jacob's skirt. Jacob's face deathly pale. Several men stared at Jacob greedily, but unfortunately, Luna was blind. He angrily scolded Jacob for being petty without distinguishing right from wrong. The jacket he instinctively took off was casually draped over Reed's arm. He warned everyone not to help Jacob. It was a waiter who couldn't stand it and offered Jacob a jacket. Jacob, teary-eyed and disheveled, fled from the hotel. Jacob went home, grabbed Jacob's Isabella, passport, and visa, and went straight to the airport. Before leaving, Luna happened to send a message. "Noah, we're getting married soon. Don't make too much trouble. You are Phoenix. She's ignorant. How can you lay a hand on her?" Jacob looked down and forced a bitter smile. Getting married, they had no future. Jacob decisively blocked Reed and boarded the plane. "Luna, Jacob will never see you again." In the lounge, Luna gently massaged Emma's ankle, applying medicine for her. He couldn't help but speak up for Jacob. "Noah is your sister-in-law after all. Be mindful of boundaries and don't make her angry again." Emma kicked her leg impatiently. "And carrying sister-in-law is clearly Oliver. Brother, you're biased. Jacob is also hurt." Luna's mind was filled with Jacob's embarrassed expression, biting her lip. His heart softened unconsciously, and he nodded perfunctorily at her. Reed didn't see the fleeting jealousy in Emma's eyes. He only saw her lift her leg downwards, provocatively and boldly. "Brother, do you want to find some excitement here?" Luna's face turned red, and his lips moved, but no words came out. Emma had tried to seduce Reed once when she was 18, but Reed wasn't moved that time. And Dean found out. Faced with her tearful pleas for help, Reed chose to ignore her. This time back, she complained about her difficulties abroad and her unchanging love over the years. So he was especially caring towards her. Who would have thought Reed would be led astray on their engagement night, making a mistake? Emma was different from Jacob. She was passionate and uninhibited, but if it really came down to matching family status, Jacob was the most suitable candidate for marriage. Seeing Reed lost in thought, Emma slid onto Reed's lap and whispered into Reed's ear, "Brother, if you don't seize the opportunity before marriage, you won't have it after marriage." Luna finally suppressed the thought of going out to the lounge to find Jacob, unable to resist the temptation of the person in front of him. In a trance, Reed recalled Jacob's disappointed, downcast gaze and sparkling tears, but soon the feeling of pleasure made him forget all of that. Reed thought Jacob must still be sulking. Jacob most anticipated marrying Reed. How could Jacob bear to leave? Reed was just indulging in some fun before marriage. After marriage, Reed would definitely behave himself and treat Jacob well. Now Reed just wanted to enjoy his single life before marriage. As for Jacob, Reed would slowly coax her later, and she would definitely change her mind. After Jacob got off the plane, as Jacob exited, Jacob saw the exceptionally eye-catching Ella. Her red hair was truly flamboyant, and she wore sunglasses. She walked towards Jacob, carrying bubble tea. Her words were unusually pleasant, but startling. "You're back, wife." Jacob flinched at the words. Was this guy so shameless now? On second thought, Jacob had indeed said Jacob would marry Ella. Ella opened the passenger seat for Jacob, watched Jacob get in, then handed the bubble tea to Jacob. "It's hot. You're on your period recently, so you can't have cold things." Jacob paused, surprised that Jacob did have a fondness for cold things, and eating cold food caused terrible pain, especially during her period. Luna only occasionally paid attention to details when they were together and sometimes forgot. Jacob didn't expect Ella to be so thoughtful. Looking at that familiar profile, Jacob felt momentarily dazed. When Jacob was little, Jacob Ruby pampered Jacob immensely. Jacob got everything Jacob wanted. At that time, Jacob and Ella were best friends, and Jacob regarded Reed as Jacob's river. Reed often called Jacob Jacob, and this continued for many years. Later, the Kin family moved abroad, and they lost contact. When they met again, their relationship suddenly became tense. Reed stole a lot of business from Jacob, but as soon as Jacob got angry, Reed quit. Now that Jacob thought about it, Reed wasn't teasing Jacob or trying to entertain Jacob at all. Was he in love with Jacob? Having just emerged from a bad relationship, Jacob was unwilling to immediately enter another one. After a moment of thought, Jacob tentatively asked, "Are you really going to marry Jacob?" "Yes." Reed was anxious, afraid Jacob would change her mind. "Noah, Jacob has already prepared the wedding gifts. You can't refuse again." Ella looked at Jacob with a somewhat aggrieved expression. "Jacob has liked you since childhood, when we were little. Playing house, you were always my bride. How did you turn around and start dating Finn when you grew up? To win you back, Jacob competed with you for business, but you didn't even look at Jacob. Jacob finally has a chance now. You can't go back on your word." Jacob stared at Reed in surprise, taking a sip of bubble tea to calm down. "Sorry, he wasn't trying to be my rival by constantly stealing my business, but secretly admired me." The car was parked by the side of the road. Jacob watched Reed dramatically clutching his chest, looking pitiful and wrong, staring at Jacob. Jacob blinked. The promise had been made. It was indeed hard to go back on it. But Jacob didn't want to use Reed as a stepping stone to quickly escape a failed relationship, so Jacob had to say, Ella, Jacob will try to like you. Reed looked at Jacob with burning eyes. A smile he couldn't suppress spreading across his lips. Good. Jacob will wait for the day you fall for Jacob. Luna had been overly indulgent and pleasure-seeking this past week. By the time he remembered Jacob, several days had passed. Reed specially bought Jacob's favorite cake and also bought several jewelry pieces at an auction as compensation to see Jacob. Luna understood Jacob best. Reed knew Jacob was easily soft-hearted and couldn't let go of this long-term relationship. So many days had passed. Jacob's anger should have subsided, but as soon as he stepped inside, the villa was empty. Where was Jacob? Before Reed could think further, he pulled out his phone to send a message. What he saw made Luna's heart sink. The message Reed had sent not long ago had not been replied to. Looking at the empty screen on his phone, he couldn't help but frown deeply. Normally, Jacob cared about Reed the most. When had Jacob ever vanished without a trace like this? Even during silent treatment, they would always naturally reconcile in the end. They had never reached a point of no contact like this. His fear inexplicably grew. He suddenly remembered Jacob saying she wanted to break off the engagement and leave. Reed was a little annoyed with himself for not contacting and coaxing Jacob earlier. But soon, Reed shook his head and smiled. The wedding date was approaching. How could Reed's bride just run away? Not to mention their families were engaged, and there were interests involved. Luna tightly gripped his phone, opened the chat box, and thought about how to coax Jacob. Before he could finish typing, a pair of hands suddenly wrapped around his waist. Smelling the familiar perfume from behind, Luna smirked triumphantly, turned around, and said, Noah, Jacob knew you couldn't bear to leave. Why are you only coming back now? Reed looked down and saw Emma pouting in displeasure. His smile instantly froze. Who let you in? Emma seemed confused. The door wasn't closed, so Jacob just came in. Luna pressed his lips together and pushed her away. Your sister-in-law will be unhappy if she sees you here. You should go back first, then sister-in-law is to Oliver, Emma complained, looking around. But sister-in-law clearly hasn't been back for days. What does it matter? Just as she finished speaking, Onyx called Yanshin. What's going on with you and Noah? Why isn't your name written on the wedding invitation? Luna was confused. He had personally written the invitation. It couldn't be wrong. Reed brushed it off with a laugh. Ruby, you must have misread it, Onyx hurriedly said. But the groom's name on the wedding invitation is Ella. And even the wedding address is specified. And this invitation came with the engagement tokens. Luna's heart sank upon hearing this, but he still tried to appear strong. Jacob and Noah had a fight. She's just being difficult with Jacob. Jacob is going to coax her. But the invitation image sent indeed showed the groom as Ella and the bride as Kai. Reed recognized it at a glance. It was Jacob's handwriting. My heart nearly leaped out of my chest. My breath hitched. Emma, seeing Reed's unpleasant expression, grabbed Reed's hand. She pretended to say, Brother, sister-in-law might just be mad at you. How could she not marry you? If you keep coaxing her like this, who knows how much trouble she'll cause after marriage. If you ask Jacob, you should leave her alone and wait for sister-in-law to come back on her own. Irritation and anger were already gnawing at him, and these words made Reed even more furious. He yanked his arm back. His voice cold. Your sister-in-law is about to marry someone else. And you're still giving bad advice. What are you really up to? Emma didn't stand firm and stumbled. Falling to the ground, she cried. Jacob didn't. Get out. Crying. You're crying away all the Song family's good fortune. You cry your sister-in-law away. Luna didn't spare her a glance, rushing out in a hurry, his hand clutching the car keys, trembling uncontrollably. His mind was filled with the two names Jacob had personally written on the invitation. Reed no longer dared to imagine Jacob was just being difficult. Reed anxiously called and sent messages repeatedly, but all he got was being blocked or red exclamation marks. An enraged Luna slammed his hand on the steering wheel, and the car let out a piercing horn blare. How dare Jacob just marry someone else without a word? Kai, it should be Jacob who marries you. Jacob and Ella's wedding date was set. And the wedding location was a private island. Ella spent a fortune buying the private island for Jacob, naming it after Jacob. If it weren't for seeing multiple purchase records, Jacob wouldn't have known that Reed had secretly acquired so many properties for Jacob. Enough for Jacob to live a life of ease. Knowing that Reed planned to give these as a wedding gift to Jacob, Jacob couldn't help but well up with terror. It turned out that in corners Jacob didn't know about, someone had always been thinking of Jacob, hoping for Jacob's happiness and fulfillment. No matter how good Luna was to Jacob, it was only limited to what Jacob needed and what Jacob liked. Fortunately, the premarital infidelity allowed Jacob to cut Jacob's losses in time. Otherwise, Jacob would have missed this man who was completely devoted to Jacob for a lifetime. Dean was overjoyed when he learned that Ella was the chosen groom. In fact, when they reunited, Reed immediately expressed his desire to marry Jacob to Dean. But at the time, Jacob was in a relationship and completely infatuated with Luna. Jacob and Ella walked hand in hand along the beach, and Jacob couldn't help but tease. What if Jacob really did marry Reed? Would you crash the wedding? No, marrying you in this life is my good fortune. If I couldn't marry you, it would be good if you found a good partner and were happy and fulfilled. Reed stopped and looked at Jacob seriously. Jacob's heart skipped a beat. Ella leaned in, looking into Jacob's eyes, then cautiously asked, "Can I kiss you?" Jacob wrapped her arms around Reed's neck and softly replied, "You can." Jacob closed her eyes, and the anticipated lips descended, cool and tingling. Suddenly, a roar came from behind, and a pair of hands quickly pulled Jacob and Ella apart. "Ella, you scumbag! How dare you kiss Jacob's fiancée?" Luna stood in front of Jacob, his voice hoarse, his chest heaving with anger. Reed spoke word by word, asserting his claim as Jacob's fiancée. "Ella, are you trying to steal a married woman?" Ella laughed in anger, pulled Jacob into his arms, and showed the diamond ring on his hand. "Married woman. She already said she was breaking off the engagement and wouldn't marry him. Open your eyes and look at our wedding rings." Luna's eyes darkened, filled with rage. Enough. Noah was just saying it out of anger. How could she not marry Jacob? Reed turned his gaze to Jacob. "Noah, are you taking this act too far? Jacob can overlook that you just kissed. Come here now, and Jacob can let bygones be bygones and marry you." Jacob was stunned by Reed's shamelessness and laughed in anger. "How are you still James?" Jacob said with a cold face, holding Ella's hand tightly. "Jacob told you Jacob was breaking off the engagement and wouldn't marry you." Luna paused slightly, his face so dark it could drip water. "Not marrying Jacob? Are you really going to marry your Abigail?" Seeing that Jacob was unyielding, Reed lowered his stance and said softly, "Noah, Jacob knows you're still angry. How about we go back and talk about it?" Reed took a step forward and grabbed Jacob's hand. "Noah, you can't abandon Jacob after so many years of our relationship. Aren't we getting married soon?" Jacob felt sick to her stomach from Reed's words. Cheating before marriage, a filthy cheat. And he still wanted Jacob to marry him. Was he going to have all the good things for himself? Jacob pulled her hand back and slapped Reed across the face, angrily saying, "Someone who cheated before marriage. Can Jacob expect you to treat Jacob well after marriage? Luna, are you an idiot? One infidelity, never again. Get help. Don't throw a tantrum here. Jacob and Ella are doing great. We already got our marriage license." "Impossible," Reed roared. It wasn't until Jacob showed him their marriage certificate from her phone that Luna believed it, and he involuntarily staggered backward. Reed couldn't accept the truth. Luna's eyes were red. "We're already engaged. Noah, how could you marry someone else? Weren't you the one who wanted to marry Jacob the most? Jacob just made a mistake any man could make. Jacob will definitely handle her and then treat you well after marriage. Be devoted to you." "Why didn't you wait for Jacob?" Ella scoffed and calmly said, "Sorry, Jacob doesn't make mistakes. Jacob is loyal to Jacob's wife." Jacob was so infuriated by these words that Jacob's heart was twisted in agony. Jacob found it absurd and utterly ridiculous. Jacob harshly cursed. "Why should Jacob wait for you? What kind of good person sleeps with his own Isabella? You knew Jacob cared most about Jacob's ruby handmade wedding dress, yet you dared to cut it up and even caused Jacob's wrist to fracture. What nerve do you have to say these things? Luna, Jacob will have to be blind to choose to marry you. Get out." Luna refused to give up, rushing over and forcibly wrapping his arms around Jacob's waist. "Noah, Jacob was wrong. Jacob truly knows Jacob was wrong. Jacob isn't a good person. But Ella is even worse. Have you forgotten Reed always stole your business? Reed is only marrying you for interests, while Jacob truly loves you." Ella felt a surge of unprovoked anger. He grabbed Reed by the collar, pulling him away. Ella had long disliked Reed. The moment Reed cheated and hurt Jacob, Ella wanted to beat Reed up badly. He rolled up his sleeves, kicked Reed to the ground, and rushed forward, landing a heavy punch on Luna's face. Luna didn't react in time and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The tooth was mixed in the blood. The two men wrestled, but Jacob wasn't worried at all. Ella was completely dominating Reed. Soon, the security Ella had called arrived. The few men looked at each other as Ella finished beating Reed and stood up. Then they pulled the enraged Luna, surrounded Reed, and dragged him away before Reed could speak. Luna's face was covered in mixed blood. His eyes were fixed on Jacob. His gaze was pleading, as if begging Jacob to change her mind. Jacob turned her face away from Reed and felt sympathy for her, touching the marks on Ella's face. "Next time, don't do it yourself." Disgusting, Jacob heard Luna's impotent rage voice from behind. "Noah, Jacob won't allow you to marry. You mustn't marry. You should marry Jacob. You should be Jacob's wife." After Luna was sent for medical treatment, Ella immediately pressured the Song family. In addition, my family pulled out of many collaborations. For a time, the Song family faced financial difficulties. Indigo and Onyx couldn't understand. After several times of humbling themselves, they finally learned the truth. Indigo rushed directly to the hospital. Thinking of the family business ruined by his hands, he was so angry he slapped him multiple times. Looking at Luna's severely swollen face, He roared furiously, "How did we raise you? A man who honors his wife thrives, one who betrays her loses everything. You disgraceful son. Not only did you cheat before marriage, but your mistress was your former Isabella. You're worse than an animal, utterly depraved." The stick as thick as a thumb landed on him. His already broken ribs were injured. Luna couldn't help but spit out another mouthful of blood. Kneeling on the ground and pleading, "Dean, Jacob knows Jacob was wrong. Jacob wants to marry Noah. Will you please plead for Jacob?" Indigo was so angry he almost passed out from rage. The stick fell heavily again. "You have the nerve to say that. But Jacob has no face to go. Jacob and your Ruby's reputation have been completely ruined by you. You wicked offspring." Onyx couldn't stop wiping her tears. Emma was grabbed her face and pressed her to the ground by Onyx. Her face was streaked with tears. She crawled behind Luna, begging for mercy. Onyx pointed at her nose and cursed loudly. "You seductress. Hussy, our family, the Song family, kindly adopted you. You slept with my son twice. Then you snuck back into the country behind our backs, and not only did you take 6 million from our family, you lived lavishly and promiscuously abroad. And then you came back and drugged my son, even dreaming of marrying into wealth and status." Emma shook her head, crying, her face covered in bloody scratches from Onyx's long nails. She hadn't expected things to turn out this way. She just wanted to come back and get some money. She climbed into bed at 18 because her biological parents secretly tracked her down and threatened her for money. She was led astray for a moment, afraid she wouldn't be able to be Miss Ashley anymore. Later, when the Song family gave her a choice, she naturally chose to take the money and go abroad without hesitation. Her secret return to the country this time was also because she had squandered all her money and wanted to make some more. Emma was afraid that once Luna married, Jacob would be closely watched, and she wouldn't get a single penny, which was why she seized the opportunity to drug him. The truth of the past was revealed. Luna, ignoring her physical pain, keenly caught 6 million and turned, full of shock. "Didn't you say you had a hard time abroad? You dared to lie to Jacob?" Indigo threw a stack of photos on the ground. Emma shrieked and lunged to grab them, but Luna pushed her away. Luna's eyes went black with rage. The various scandalous photos were unimaginable in their explicitness, and a metallic taste rose in his throat. Emma tried to argue, but Luna grabbed her by the neck. "You wretched woman, it's all you. If you hadn't seduced Jacob, how could Jacob and Noah have chosen to marry someone else?" Onyx was sobbing uncontrollably, and Indigo shook his head, pulling Luna away. Later, Emma's biological parents happened to find them, demanding that the Song family marry her and provide a large wedding gift, or they would accuse Luna of rape. The Song family valued their reputation, so they ultimately forced Reed to get their marriage license. But those parasitic parents were far from satisfied. It was said that their lives were a mess, constant chaos. Finally, Indigo and Onyx broke off contact with Luna and Stephanie. Without money, Luna instantly became dejected, aging over a decade overnight. Emma had intended to run away with the last of the money, but Reed discovered her. An enraged Luna picked up a fruit knife and stabbed her multiple times, killing her. After killing her, Reed ultimately committed suicide. The two bodies were discovered much later, reportedly decomposed beyond recognition. When Jacob received this news, he was having his wedding on a private island with Ella. Dean felt Robert and couldn't help but drink a few extra glasses at the dinner table. "Ella poked my lower back. You wouldn't go soft, would you? The wedding's already happened. Now you're completely mine now, go." "Looks like someone wants me to change my mind and go soft." Jacob rubbed his forehead helplessly. Before he could even pretend to walk away, Reed held him tightly and kissed his cheek fiercely. "No," Ella said in a muffled voice. "You can only be Jacob for this lifetime, of course." Jacob added, "I will always, always love you." Reed immediately happily picked Jacob up in a princess carry and spun around. Seeing this, both sets of parents couldn't help but smile. At this moment, time stood still at Jacob's happiness, within reach.